Hey everyone, welcome back to the Woohoo Points podcast where we talk about credit cards, points and miles, and just general travel things. Today I have Jonathan Platt, a veteran, someone I've met over LinkedIn that's also into the points and miles advising side. And we're going to talk a little bit about the military and how you can take advantage of certain credit cards, but also philosophically why maybe we should hold back on certain things. But we will reveal all that later. For now, Jonathan, welcome. How I like to start each episode is just kind of tell me a cool trip you've taken on points and miles.
I'll pull out one that's it kind of brings out several different things. So back in 2005, there was a Wendy's AirTran promotion. So like McDonald's has a little Monopoly pull-offs on their
Mhm.
cups and the fries and everything. So Wendy's did one with AirTran Airlines, which was absorbed by Southwest over the years. But
Yes, some viewers probably don't
so
even know what that is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you bought your meal, you bought your drink, whatever, and you got these little tabs. And if you collected, I think it was like 32 of them. It wasn't like Monopoly where you had to get certain things. It was just collecting the pieces. And if you collected 32 of them, you got a free flight on AirTran, free round trip flight. So that's basically worth whatever the flight. It didn't matter. It was any flight. And so I did that for a couple of months there while they were running the promotion. I mean, there's stories of people like dumpster diving for pieces and all kinds of stuff. I didn't do any of that. I may have picked up a couple that I saw on the ground, as I was walking out of the store or
They
something.
were in
But
front of you, so it was okay.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, basically, I was all in maybe like, I don't know, $70 or something over a couple months on food and drink that I was gonna buy food and drink anyway, right? Like I might not have gone to Wendy's to get that, Dr. Pepper while I was driving somewhere. I might have stopped in 7-Eleven or something, but I was like, oh, I can get a piece at Wendy's and
Yeah.
gets me towards a free flight. So I ended up collecting enough for two free flights. And then and later, I wasn't married at that time, but held on to those. And later, when I was married, my wife and I took a trip. And the other piece of that, why points and miles are so valuable, we were planning on going to Puerto Rico for a vacation,
Mhm.
and the weather just got terrible in the Caribbean. And like one day before, we're like, hey, this is not going to be a good week to vacation in Puerto Rico, right? So we had everything booked, flights, taken care of by the points basically there, the hotel and all that. And we pivoted last minute, like literally the day before we're gonna fly, like we were holding off and it wasn't gonna work out. So we ended up going to Arizona, had a great vacation in Phoenix, Scottsdale, went to a couple of great resorts there. So yeah, I mean, just from being able to get something, several $100s worth of flights for like 60 or 70 bucks, again, that I got food for, I was going to buy anyway. So it really didn't cost me anything to being able to pivot because of the flexibility of points and miles.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Do you remember what was the best value item to get the most amount of the stickers?
I think, I mean, everything had like two of them on it, I think, one, or maybe it was one, I don't know. But basically, like a drink was the easy button, right? Like it was, I don't know, this was over 20 years ago, right? So a drink was like 99 cents or something. It wasn't a whole lot of money. So yeah, I think mostly it was like me hitting the drive-through, picking up a drink. Yeah, I probably ate there. I mean, I never eat Wendy's now, right? Like it's just not something I do. Get it for my kids occasionally, but
Yeah.
it's also different being 20 something and
You can eat
uh,
whatever.
late at night, they're the only place open or whatever. But yeah, so I think it was mostly just grabbing a drink. It was like, hey, easy to, again, I could just buy the drinks and that was cheaper than buying a flight by a long shot.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. But t tell us a little bit more about you and your background. Obviously, I've previewed that the focus today is a little bit about the military and how credit cards intersect. But tell us your kind of quick story first.
Yeah, so I've been into points and miles actually before I got in the military. So as soon as I graduated high school, I actually took a trip with a buddy. We were looking for a hotel. This is like year 2000. Radisson used to run a bunch of promotions where if you signed up for their Radisson Gold Rewards, it was called at the time,
Hmm.
just for signing up and completing like one stay, you get a ton of points, like enough points to stay like 2 or 3 nights kind of thing. So that's what initially got me hooked. And then doing some travel during college, like started racking up some frequent flyer miles. And the rest is kind of history from there. As I was graduating college, I became a travel agent, concurrent with going in the military, and that was just kind of I was booking a cruise for some friends in college. We were all taking a vacation together during the senior year. I'd taken one the year before with a couple of buddies, and all these other people were like, "Hey, we should do that next year." So we did it, and then I was like, "Why am I not the one getting the commission off this?" Right? I'm working with this travel agent. I'm doing literally all the work, other than
Mhm.
typing it into the cruise line website, and he's getting the 14% commission. So I was like, "Why am I not the one getting this?" So that led to me becoming a travel agent. Did that, again, concurrent with being in the military and, had the opportunity to help out a lot of people in the military along the way, get them some flights at cost, things like that. But I realized I didn't actually love booking travel for people. I like traveling myself, which was kind of part of the reason why I got into it in the first place, to be able to get the
Yeah.
discounts, especially back then, like as a travel agent, you could get like super cheap hotels. So between military people on points and miles, and then as I was getting ready to retire from the military last year or a few months ago, last year as I'm preparing for that transition, a lot of friends encouraged me like, "Hey, you should do this full time, like make a job at it," which I'd kind of done through my travel agency business. Like again, I'd kind of morphed into that, but I decided to, hang a new shingle and rename the business sort of and really focus on points and miles. But unlike what a lot of you guys do, I don't actually book trips for people or even really advise people on trips. I'm solely focused on helping individuals too, but specifically small businesses earn more rewards from their spending that they're already doing. So helping them figure out the right credit cards so that they can earn, maximize, optimize their earnings there. So I'll give them some general advice on redemptions, but
Mhm.
really if they're looking for somebody to really help with, hey, I want to take a trip to wherever, that's where I'm going to point them to one of you guys.
Awesome. And then, so your new company is called the Rewards Audit. I'll have it on the screen somewhere over here.
Okay.
What's the you spoke a little bit about it, but like kind of what's the impetus behind the name Rewards Audit?
Yeah, yeah. So the reward audit really is, just like a business owner is going to have a CPA that's, handling their, taxes, finances, stuff like that. Financial advisor probably that's helping them, figure out how to invest their money, all those things. It's kind of the same premise that you need somebody looking at your rewards, making sure that you're actually earning the most you can, and then again, I'm not getting full into the weeds on helping them redeem, but giving them some advice on like, hey, this is what you can do with it. This is how you could do it. And I really take the approach that there is no wrong redemption. Like the only wrong redemption is the one that's not right for you.
Mm.
So for some
Hmm.
people, like I mean, we all cringe when people redeem for gift cards, right? But if somebody's got 500 million miles, like what does it matter? Like how are they ever going to spend that many miles? So if they buy gift cards for their friends and family for Christmas, like go for it, right? Now,
Yeah.
on the other hand, if somebody like they've only got like 100,000 miles and they're dropping them on gift cards when they're also traveling. Like, hey, you could have easily just gotten a flight for that. But I have clients that don't travel at all, and so there's literally no point in them having any travel rewards because like their one trip a year they take is like to the beach or to a cabin or something where they're driving and it's their friend's cabin or beach house or family or whatever, and so they have no travel expenses. And in that case, maybe a cashback setup is the right, thing for them. And so I'm not opposed to any type of redemption, any type of earning strategy. It's just what's right for that person. But I
Yeah.
do want to make them aware of what the options are.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is not redeem, right? It's just keeping the
Exactly.
points in the bank. That's the worst thing you can do. As long as you're using the
Yeah, for
points.
sure.
Yeah, good. No, that's a good step. All right. Now let's pivot a little bit. I believe a lot of your, or maybe I don't know the percentage, but like you have some military members, right, that you're advising. They in the United States specifically, the is it the SCRA Act? I don't know what it stands for, but there's a basically a special place for military members and their spouses in the credit card world. Do you want to explain a little bit more about like that?
Yeah, so there's actually two different things. One is the Service Member Civil Relief Act, SCRA, and so that is a long-standing thing. It's been around for I don't know when it was initially created, but it was revamped like 20 something years ago, I think, and maybe a couple times since then. But basically, the gist of it's all about debt that is pre-service. So, somebody's coming into the service. They've got these debts they've incurred for whatever reason, whether that be a house or credit cards, whatever it is. And we're trying to ensure that they're not paying too much interest because now they've taken this step of, joining the military and serving their country. So we don't want them getting gouged on interest while they're, potentially taking a pay cut or, just starting out in their career, those kind of things. And so that's what SCRA is really about. So it's pre-service debt. So practically speaking, for credit cards, the only thing that it means is that your interest rate is capped at 6%. So any credit card debt you have when you come into the military, it's capped at 6%. Now, it doesn't apply to anything after you get in the military. So
Mm.
it's all, some 19-year-old kid comes in the military, they've got $20,000 worth of credit card debt. Well, magically, they only have to pay 6% on that, and they get payment plan, all those things. They can't get penalized for paying it off early, all this stuff. But anything they incur after that new car they buy because they got their first paycheck, right? Because that's what every enlisted member of the military, it seems, does, is they go out and buy this car that they can't afford because suddenly they're making, what seems to them like a ton of money, which
Yeah.
for someone who has no expenses actually is quite a bit of money. Like they get, paid pretty well for, when they're, if they don't have a family or anything, right? They're living in, housing, they're being provided, they have no expenses, cell phone bill, and then car payment. And of course, nothing wrong with having a car, but inevitably they go out and get that car that has a $2,000 payment when their salary is $3,000 a month, right? So,
Mhm.
but there's no cap on the interest because of SCRA for debt they incur after they join the military. And so that's where a lot of people get in trouble with that. So all it
Mhm.
does is any debt you have coming in caps that at 6%. Now, on the other side, there's the Military Lending Act, MLA, and that came along much later in time. So I've got stuff that it has SCRA applied to it, and then I have stuff that has MLA applied to it, and then I have stuff that's not eligible for either because, I'd been in so long that I had like I actually got out for a period of time and then went back in. So I have things that are in the gap between there that they're not eligible for SCRA, but they're not eligible for MLA. But MLA, what it does basically for credit cards, all it says is you can't charge higher than 36% interest, right? I mean, there's nothing great about 36% interest. Like that's not really helping anyone other than, again, really it's just making sure that they're not getting completely gouged, right? Like
Yeah.
normal credit card interest rates are not above 36%. It's only people that, have a problem that they're not paying their debt off, things like that. That's where their rate gets jacked up to, potentially above that. And so that's really all MLA says is, hey, even if the service member is not, doing what they're supposed to do, they don't have good credit, like you can't go charging them 90% interest. Like they're capped at 36%, which is still a terrible interest rate, right? Like 6% is not bad. And some banks actually offer like 4%. So that's actually a pretty good interest rate. Like when it comes to earning rewards, like if you're paying any interest, you're not earning rewards, right? But if you need to borrow money, if you have a credit card at 4%, like that's actually not a bad, interest rate. So, there
Yeah,
are
I
some
think
options.
mortgages are around more than that now, so
Right. Yeah.
gotcha. No, that's helpful. I didn't know about all the interest rate caps. That's really helpful. What would be like your, let's say an 18-year-old or someone just joining the military now, or even younger people in ROTC, like what would be like one piece of advice you'd have for them in this kind of financial area?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest thing for whether it's a young person or somebody who's been in a number of years is
Mhm.
really don't treat it any differently than any other person that is in that same situation, right? So if you're 18 and you're a college student, whether you're going in the military or not, right? Start building your credit, get the credit cards that make sense for you at that time, those beginner cards that help build your credit, all those things. And if you're later in life, get the cards that match for what you're doing. Don't go after the cards just because some banks, Citi, American Express, Chase, Bank of America, just because they waive fees for military members, they're not required to. That's
Mhm.
not part of SCRA or MLA, but a lot of them do waive the annual fees. But don't go after those just because. Like that can be part of your math. We do the math all the time on card annual fees, right? Like, is it worth it based on the credits we're using, the benefits we're getting, all that? Like, yeah, it's part of the math, right? If you're not paying that $895 annual fee, then that, changes the math for you. But just because it changes the math doesn't mean it's the right card. And I think that's where a lot of people in the military, like, the American Express is actually pretty genius in this because they give everybody the American Express Platinum, in the military that once it applies for it, no $895 annual fee. Well, what does that mean? It means almost everybody in the military that has it uses that as their daily spender card, right? So that makes up for all
Mhm.
of us that have an Amex Platinum that don't use it for daily spending because we know it is literally the worst card ever to use for daily spending. And so, yeah, that's the most common thing I see is just people using, especially MX Platinum, but not only, but just using a card because they're like, hey, I got this really fancy card for free, and they're just using it for everything. I'm like, cool that you got it for free, but like, what are you actually getting out of it? Like, if you're putting all your spending on it, I guarantee you're losing out on rewards. Now, if the lounge access, if all that stuff makes sense to your lifestyle, then again, crunch the numbers and see. But it doesn't mean it's the right card for you just because it has no annual fee, right there. You know there are no annual fee cards out there for everyone that actually make a lot more
Way
sense than
better.
some of these expensive cards that have lounge access and things even. So
Yep. Yep.
you've hit on some of those a few times.
Yeah, no, as you were saying, Amex has done a great job in their culture, whether taking advantage of when it's mentioned, right, in pop culture or just doing their own marketing. They spend millions of dollars to like really ingrain, because I see that a lot. I love military people messaging me, reaching out. I know about the Amex Platinum. I know I can get it for free. Should I get it? And it's just like, I don't know, that instant click. Like there's other cards that do it. I think Capital One is the bank that doesn't waive
Capital
fees.
One does not. Right. But
Yeah.
the Venture X is basically a no annual fee card at the end of the day, right? They're paying you $5 to hold the card. So, it doesn't really matter on that one. But yeah, most of the other banks do it. Your Chase, your Amex, Citi. Although there are problems sometime with it being applied. Like I had
Hmm.
one account that I changed the account. It was American Airlines executive card, right? And I downgraded it to the Mile Up card because they were charging the annual fee. They said, "Hey, you're not eligible for MLA." I'm like, "How am I not eligible?" Like, yeah, my other cards I have with you guys are, but there
Yeah,
was just
that's
some
weird.
glitch in their system, and I went back and forth with them, and they never got it straightened out. So I was like, "Forget it. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Just downgrade the card." And then like I don't know, like a couple months later, they suddenly realized, oh yeah, you are eligible. And I was like, I've been telling you that. And so, yeah, so you never know. But again, it's not required by law. It's just something that the banks do. So, I personally am not a fan of them waiving fees on the high annual fee cards because it does clutter up the lounges with people who are getting the card for free that, have all the cards because they're getting them for free that would not have that card otherwise. But again, that's just kind of me. I mean, I don't churn cards. I've had my Amex Platinum, like the date on it is 1998.
Hmm.
So, I haven't had the Platinum card the entire time, but the way Amex does, or at least used to do, is they date it back to your first card. And so back in those days, you couldn't even get the Amex Platinum by applying. You had to have another card, build some credit with them, and then call them and be like, "Hey, I think I'd like the Amex Platinum card. I'm willing to pay the 300, $250 a year, whatever it
Oh,
was
so
back
cheap
then."
back then.
Yeah.
Let's go back to what you just said, right? Like I feel like a lot of times when I get military members that, want these cards, usually it's, hey, a premium travel card would be good for you for XYZ reasons. And on top of that, you can kind of collect them all because it's free. But what you're saying, sparks a little contention in my head, right? That we always have lounge overcrowding. We have people that misuse credit cards. So just want to go back to the point, like if if what would you say to me like right now as I'm saying, oh, military members kind of get, go wild, go get all these cards. Like what are your kind of reasonings for reining that back in, analyzing strategy, and then like not just the individual consequences, but also like things that affect non-military members or just everyone, right? In the lounges and what else? Like what are some things you would want to respond to?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think for the travel, world at large, like just handing out all these benefits to people that are not paying for them, it devalues the product, right? Like when you go to the Centurion Lounge, you can't get in because there's a 3 hour wait. And a lot of those people are people that literally that's the only time of year they're traveling, but they happen to have an Amex Platinum card. And that's part of the game. That's how it works. But I'm just not a big fan of the banks waiving that. Now, from the individual side, again, I look at it as it doesn't matter that you're in the military, you need to have the right strategy, right? Yes, you can open all these cards, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, I have them all, right? Like I have more credit cards than most people have. Any given time I have, probably, $15,000 in annual fees. Some of them I'm paying, some I'm not, over the years. But, you know, it, you should still have the right portfolio for whatever makes sense for you, right? Just because you can get them doesn't mean you should, doesn't mean the card's doing you any good beyond the sign-up bonus. And then if you're, again, you get the sign-up bonus, but then you're redeeming them for gift cards, like is it really, you didn't maximize that. And also there's all the rules, right? There's 524 and all the other rules that the issuers have. So just because you can get all these cards, like you may be hurting yourself in the long run because you go, hey, well, I can get all these Amex cards for free. So I'm going to open the Platinum card, the Gold card, a Delta card, a Hilton card, a Marriott card. Well, next thing you know, you're now not eligible to get any Chase cards because you just opened five cards. And
Mhm.
right, the Chase cards, maybe what you really needed. Personally, I don't value Amex points as high as Chase because they're more, I'll say they're more difficult to use. You have to really maximize the value of Amex points, you have to transfer them to the partners, the foreign partners, right? Like Chase is much easier to use because, hey, bam, transfer over to Hyatt, transfer it to Marriott. Yes, Amex has Marriott as
Southwest,
well, but
United,
on
yeah.
the airline side though, right? Like Delta is it for Amex. And oh, by the way, you pay the excise, tax on that. So you're actually paying to transfer those miles. So I just don't find it as valuable unless you're going to go for the high value redemptions, right? Yes, if you transfer to a foreign partner and you're getting a business class redemption, it's great. But just for the average user, I think Chase is much easier to use because you can also use it through the portal and actually get pretty good value, right? The points boost
Points
is
boost.
is
Yep.
really good. Whereas Amex, like your points boost on Amex is actually getting a hotel at 1 cent per point. Like that's not normal for hotels. Like usually it's like, zero point 0.7. So getting one at 1 cent per point is actually a really good deal. Whereas like that's baseline with Chase. Like that's you don't even book those with Chase. So again, so if you go crazy and open all these Amex cards, next thing you know, you're now locked out for 2 years from being able to hold what I think are the more valuable cards in the Chase portfolio.
Mhm. Is that, I say something, I said go wild as like kind of the devil's advocate. Is that what you see though when you were in the military with your peers? Did like I'm assuming there's a range, but it's like, is it a lot of people just don't even care about the credit cards? Some people are getting a couple because they feel like they should. I'm assuming it's only a couple outliers that do, go wild in that sort of sense. Like what have you kind of seen? And then continue the conversation. What would you change about it? In your ideal world, how would military members operate again within this credit card world?
Yeah, so I think there's a wide range, like you said. I mean, what I saw the most probably was probably when it first started happening. Because again, I had all my cards, like I was paying annual fees on all of them for long before any of this started. Because this didn't really come out of SCRA. SCRA had been around, and they didn't always waive fees. It was much more inconsistent back then because again, it was only about pre-service debt. MLA is the one that really changed things. And it's not quite so altruistic as it seems. First of all, like I said, American Express is making out like bandits with military members who are putting all their spending on Amex Platinum. But it's beyond that as well. I think there was some legal concerns because of the way the law was worded. It caps fees. And so what it really is supposed to be is that you can't be charging late fees and things that add up to, too much. But some of the issuers kind of interpret it like, hey, like if we charge them an annual fee that's, $600, because that's such a high fee, the percentage based, against their balance of, whatever their $3,000 balance is, like that could look like we're charging them a fee that's too high. Even though it is an annual fee that's 100% allowed,
Hmm.
I think there was some concern. They just didn't want to get, right? Because the problem is anytime you get into a lawsuit with like service member issues, it doesn't matter if you're right or not, you look bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the thing. I think they just kind of erred on the side of caution and said, yeah, let's just waive the fees, right? Like we're probably going to make out, better on them anyway, because they're probably going to use the cards.
Everyone's
They're
gonna
not
get
really,
them. Yeah.
yeah. And everybody's going to get them and all that. And we're going to gain customers for life, even when they leave the military, all that. When it first started coming out and happening, like I didn't even know it actually. Like because again, I already had the cards. Like I might have seen something like gotten something in the mail like, oh, like we're waiving your fee this year, but like it never occurred to me when it first started happening that they were waiving them for new applicants, right? Like I got it. I'd had my card for 10 years or whatever. Like, yeah, you're waiving your fee. You've been in the military 10 years. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever.
Hmm.
But then when I start hearing from people like they're going around telling everybody in the office like, hey, you got to apply for the MX Platinum. I'm like,
Hmm.
what? Like, oh, they're waiving fees for new applicants. And so that's actually where I think from a systematic perspective, like waiving fees for new applicants is different than waiving fees for someone who already had the card, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, yes, most of your young people going to the military don't have annual fee cards or high annual fee cards, but where I really see like these laws being valuable and in terms of the credit card world is right that business owner who is in the in the Army Reserve or National Guard or something that suddenly they're going on orders, right? Like, and they're taking a huge pay cut to go serve their country for a year, whether it's voluntary or not. Sometimes it is, like, and that the lines get blurred on that. But the bottom line is, right, they're stepping away from their civilian job and consulting or whatever, where they're making $500,000 a year. Now they're making $150,000 a year in the military. And so, and they're not traveling like they were, right? Like their consulting job, they're on the road 4 days a week kind of thing. And their premium travel cards are, a part and parcel of their lifestyle. But now they're not doing that, so it doesn't make sense for them to be paying a fee for that. But they may not want to, cancel their account. They may not want to downgrade it, whatever. So like it's one thing for the bank to say, "Hey, yeah, I got it. You're going on orders for the next year. Like we're not going to charge you a fee for that." Like I'm 100% supportive of that. It's that people that are already in the military, they're applying for cards, just getting them. That's where I don't think the banks should, just waive the fees for everybody. Now, it's different if you're talking about like a $95 annual fee cards, like, hey, like, because that's really entry point trying to get people in, right? But
Yeah.
it's these, $895 annual fee. Well, like you and I both know that there's enough credits that offset that fee anyway. So if you're willing to use them, so just wiping that fee away for someone, it's like, well, like you're taking away the incentive for them to actually, use the card like it's supposed to be used and have to work towards getting the benefits and credits to offset the annual fee. But again, I get it, right? When somebody's putting, their entire household bills, everything on the American Express Platinum, American Express just sitting there going, yeah, this is great. Like we're only giving them 1 point per dollar spent, and we're keeping all the rest of that, interchange fee and everything. So
Yeah.
like I get that, but just from a customer experience perspective, like I would rather see them tighten up that more and like, yeah, hey, you want that, there's some stipulations to it. It's not just everybody, because again, a lot of these people that are getting it are not people that would pay an $895 annual fee, even though it can be offset. Like they're young, enlisted members like that. Their salary doesn't support, correlate for them having $5,000 in annual fees. Like, and again, everybody, makes their own decisions on how they spend their money, right? Like somebody buys a really expensive car, somebody buys a cheap car. Like everybody gets to make their own decision, but just generally across the board, like I see a lot of people that their income and lifestyle doesn't support high annual fee cards, yet they have them because they're free. And so that's kind of where I'd like to see that get realigned a little bit so that it actually, makes sense that people are actually getting the cards that make sense for their lifestyle, for their spending, all that, not just, hey, I'm going to open every card I can because I'm going to get the fee waived.
Oh, those are some pretty good wise words to end the session. But before that, is there anything else you want to say or promote, your page? I can leave again links and socials up and down here.
I guess the only other thing I would say is that one of the things I've really focused on lately is helping people who are transitioning out of the military because they're having sticker shock all of a sudden, right? Like they're getting these bills or the way the process kind of works, and I'm still going through it myself, is you get a notification like, hey, your annual fee is going to start getting charged at some point. Like you're no longer eligible for a
Mm,
CRA, MLA, whatever it is. And so, having a plan before they get out of the military to know what are the right things. And there also may be cards that they want to open right before they get out because they cannot pay the annual fee for the first year.
mm,
And that may be, rather than just open a bunch of cards, like, okay, let's open the right cards. Like if the Chase Sapphire Reserve is the right card for you and what you're doing next, let's open that and not have to pay the annual fee this year and get the sign-up bonus and everything. And then next year, you can reevaluate like you always should do with cards. But I think that's one of the things that I'm offering to help a lot of people with right now is that transition because it is going to be sticker shock when all of a sudden you have all these fees coming due. Um, and
and
so
that's how
like
the banks get
I'd
you.
like
They're
to,
like,
yeah.
you love these perks, so you're gonna start paying for them now.
Exactly. So, I would encourage everybody to do that, sit down and think through that. And I'm happy to, do that with people. I do, the initial consult is free. And then I waive the engagement fee for transitioning veterans. And so, it's really, and the way I charge my fees is the amount of money I'm going to save people or, make people in that first year far outweighs, right? The fee is a very small percentage of what they're going to make. Like, hey, $200 fee and you're going to make $10,000 in rewards next year kind of thing or something like that. So, it's definitely, worth having someone, as you know, with all this stuff, right? Anybody can do it. It just takes the time to research and everything.
Mm.
And as you've probably well seen, like AI is terrible at parsing the details of this, right? Like I don't know how many times like AI is going to keep telling me like old redemption rates for Chase Ultimate Rewards points. Like every time we have a discussion, it's like, hey, you can redeem those points at 1.5 cents per point. I'm like, no, you can't. Like that's been gone for like a year now. So, yeah, but just having somebody help you out, I think, can really, really help service members that are transitioning, make sure they have the right cards. They're not going to be paying fees. They don't need to pay, that they're using the right cards. Again, that's the biggest thing is using the right cards. Like just because you have the card doesn't mean you should use it, as we talk about all the time. So that's probably my biggest thing for people right now is just helping them as they're transitioning that they have the right cards, using the right cards, and get those set up.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you for the time. Thank you for your service. This has been a really awesome chat.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew.